Hello everybody and welcome. In today's video, I'd like to show you everything that I made this winter season, and I've been putting this off a little bit because this season was complicated for me for a few different reasons in my personal life. It was kind of hard for me to concentrate on creative projects, and so this season was slow again, just like last season. I made 8 projects that I'm very happy with. They're all great staples, and so I'm excited to show those to you. But yeah, this season was slower and more complicated, and I was dealing with a lot of different emotions, a lot of grief. Nothing super serious, nobody's passed away, just complicated issues. And so hopefully that is going to get better soon, and my springtime will be better because I see the sun is out, my flowers are growing, everything's a little bit more positive, and hopefully it'll help. But I have lots of projects to show you today, and because I don't have as much as I had planned on showing you when I first planned out my winter projects, if you're interested, I also thought I'd talk about, just like last season, the things I've been doing outside of sewing that have been creatively occupying me, such as, for example, this season, gardening and reading. So if that would be of interest to you, stay tuned to the end. But before we get started, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Sarah. I'm originally from the US, but I moved to France in 2009 and now I live here. So that is why I have an American accent, but I'm based in France. And on this channel, I mostly talk about sewing, a little bit of knitting and embroidery when I dabble in them, and a little bit of what it's like to live in France, because that definitely influences my creative inspiration and what I want to make and wear on a daily basis. So I hope you enjoy. The first project that I worked on at the beginning of the season was the Seamwork Callen sweater that I wanted to save. So this sweater I started right before the Christmas holiday season, or spending the holidays with my family in California. It was about 6 hours before I had to go to bed before a very early morning flight from France to California, and I decided that rather than sit here and twitch with anxiety about traveling, which I always do even though I travel often, I decided that I was going to make a sweater because I thought, you know what, it's a pretty quick project. No, it's not. It's not going to be too complicated. It was. And I cut out the Seamwork Callen sweater and then realized after sewing it about 3/4 of the way, I was almost finished with it. I was almost getting to the hem. I realized that I had cut it out fine, but that I had sewed it up inside out. So I had confused the right sides and the wrong sides. This is a wool blend fabric in a dark berry color from Tissu Emer, which is a German fabric store. I've worked with this fabric before. This is the same exact fabric. It's a wool blend fabric and it's slightly fuzzy. And I had confused the fuzziness. So I thought that it was really fuzzy, but then I was looking at it as I was making it in the dark because it was December. This looks a little bit more fuzzy than my last version, like a little bit more like a plush toy fuzzy than a sweater. And as I was looking it over at about 11 o'clock at night, I realized, oh no, I can now see the purl bumps because it is a knit fabric. I can see the V's on the right side and the purl bumps on the wrong side, and I have been sewing it the wrong way around. Not only that, but in the light of day, the next day, I saw that the mohair sort of, or it's not mohair, but the sort of fuzzy effect wasn't homogeneous. And so there were like holes where there was no fuzzy and then sometimes tufts of fuzzy, and so it was very obviously not the right side. And a lot of you encouraged me to just wear it that way anyway, but I promise you, it looked a lot better on camera from far away, and it was just pretty not great looking. And so I managed to cut out a second body, or the body pieces, like the front, back, and the sleeves, out of the remaining fabric I had left. And then I hacked into the first version to cut out all of the facings because there are neckline facings, there are the cuffs on the sleeves, and then also the hem is completely faced. And so it required a lot more fabric than I anticipated, but I managed to get all of the pieces cut out. I was very careful about the right sides and the wrong sides, and I sewed it up. So this fabric is a little bit difficult to use. Because it's so fuzzy, the interfacing is hard to work with, and it sort of crumbles under the machine, so I have been picking out little fuzzies out of my machine ever since. But yeah, I'm happy with the way it turned out. I think that this is not the kind of color that I would reach for on a daily basis. I prefer more neutrals on a daily basis, but I'm happy that I have something cozy to wear during winter celebrations in the future, such as a Christmas or New Year's or just holiday party in general. I think that this will be very cozy and warm and nice. My second project was a second Seamwork Callen sweater because I purchased with the dark berry colorway three other colorways of this fabric because I don't want it to go out of stock and not to be able to make anything out of it again, because it's just the perfect light layer for the fall and winter when I'm at home and I just need something light to keep me warm but not too warm. And I find it's perfect. And so I bought it in also a dark gray colorway, and I made it again. And this time I knew from looking at it now which was the right and the wrong side. Because I had just made it, I had the order of putting it together in mind, and so I didn't have to refer to the instructions as much, and it sort of whizzed through my machine, which felt really, really good after the last project. And this one I absolutely adore because it is a darker color and a dark gray. It goes with a lot of the bottoms that I have, and I'm really happy that I have such a staple that I can wear in addition to this one, which is a light gray colorway. I will have to be very careful with how I wash it, so I pre-washed it in my washing machine on a woolen setting, and I air dried it. But I noticed with this one recently that it has shrunk. So this is where the sleeves sit now, and when I originally made it, the sleeves were full length, and it has shrunk this way. It hasn't shrunk widthwise, it's not tighter, but I've noticed that the hem sits a little bit higher. I compared it to the new version that I made, and it's only about this much shorter, but the sleeves are much shorter. Like, that is at least maybe 5 inches, 10 centimeters. And it's now more of a 3/4 length sleeve, and I prefer this one to be a long sleeve because I wear it when I'm cold, and so I don't want cold wrists. And so I did purchase a little bit more of this colorway, and I think I might make it again, but I need to be very, very careful with how I wash it. It's only about 5 to 10% wool content. I'll check and put it below here. And so I didn't think that it would shrink so much, but it did. So strange. And so maybe I'll keep to hand washing this fabric from now on, which is a bit of a bummer because I didn't want something that was so fiddly, but I wear it all the time, so it's definitely worth it. Oh, and before I forget, I made a size 00 corresponding to my bust size. It is the smallest size in the Seamwork range, and it corresponds pretty well to my bust. It's maybe a little bit tight at the shoulders, but it works for me, and this is a pretty boxy top, so I didn't make any other alterations. The next project I made was the Seamwork Palmer pants, and these are pants that I've been wanting to make for a while because it is meant for knit fabrics and it's wide-legged, and I have been trying to work on having more to wear around the house that is comfortable. And since I'm no longer working in the city and in an office setting, but on this channel and at home most of the time, or going to the city for appointments and fitness classes and things, or seeing friends, but I no longer need my business casual clothes, which is kind of sad because I love my skirts and pencil skirts and blouses, but for now my lifestyle has changed and I need more pants. I need more practical clothes, and so I thought this would be perfect because it is in a stretch fabric, but it's wide-legged, and pawnee fabric is stiffer and more structured than a lighter knit fabric, and so I thought it would be comfortable secret pajamas that would look good out of the house. And I chose to make it in this pawnee fabric that I found at L'Étoile, which is a shop in Lyon, which is a city in the southeast of France. And I found it when I was visiting friends in Lyon earlier this fall, and it was such a beautiful little shop. I'll link it below because if you're ever visiting Lyon, I highly recommend it. They have a great selection. And what I liked about this fabric is not only is it a really lovely blend of dark blue and white in cooler tones and not too stuffy, like not too basic navy, so business casual navy, but also not too casual, like a gray might have been. But also it hangs really nicely. It's not too stiff, not too stretchy. It doesn't wrinkle like some viscose blend pawnees do. And so, yeah, I thought it would be perfect. And it was. It worked really nicely. It was really easy to sew. And the thing is, I don't really like the way the pattern is designed in the end. Before I go any further and forget, I made a size 0 at the waist, graded to a size 4 at the hips, because that's what corresponded to my waist and hip measurements, and that went very well. So what I don't really like about this pattern is the way it fits. The waistband on me sits about an inch or two below my natural waist, which was confusing because on the web page of this pattern and in the description and in the fit model, it says that it sits at the natural waist, which is strange because it does not on me. And I didn't have to modify the rise of my Seamwork Joss pants, for example, so I didn't even look at the rise because I thought, oh, their pattern block works for me. I don't have to modify that. But in the end, I should have. It sits too low and I find it kind of uncomfortable. I really don't like the feeling of having a waistband elastic around my belly. I have a sensitive tummy, and so when I eat, sometimes I have some pain and I don't like an elastic hugging me there. And then I also just prefer the look of a waistband at my natural waist versus lower on my high hips. I just like lengthening my legs versus lengthening my torso, creating that optical illusion of longer legs versus a longer torso. So that's just a preference of mine. But yeah, that was a little bit of a shame. And then also I think that I didn't realize that it was an integrated waistband facing. So there is a facing sewn to the top edge of the pants and then turned under, and that's where the waistband elastic channel goes. And it's not a separate waistband. And so the pockets go straight up to the top of the waist, and the top stitching goes across the top of the pocket slash, or the opening of the pockets, and I find that just not very nice looking. I think it looks a little bit, yeah, it doesn't look very finished, very nicely finished, and that's something that I didn't realize until I was making it. I think because a lot of the pattern photos don't show the waistband top, a lot of the models are wearing tops that sort of hang over the top of the waistband. I might be mistaken, but yeah, I didn't realize that until I was making it, and it's not a bad make. I do wear it on a regular basis, and I like the way the wide leg fit looks on me. So from the hips down, I love the way it looks. I just don't like the way it feels when I'm wearing it and when it's hugging my belly. But yeah, I think would I make it again? I really like the wide leg fit of it. I think if I made it again, I would definitely lengthen the rise about an inch or two so that it would sit at my natural waist, and I'm not sure if it would be worth all that effort. So maybe not. My next make was a Seamwork Edie top from their Work to Weekend ebook in this putty colored waffle textured cotton knit from Benitex, which is a fabric warehouse in the northeastern suburbs of Paris. And as much as I was trying to convince myself that no, it's not a putty color, it's a light beige or greige or taupe. In the end, I'm happy with the way it turned out because I love the Edie top. I make it often. I always make a size 8 is their smallest size, which is a little bit big on me, but works in this top. And then I carve out about 2 centimeters of ease at the side seams, or I did on the pattern piece, and so the side seams are taken in a little bit. But I always make that size, and it worked very well with this one too. This is a little bit less of an elastic and drapey knit than the viscose versions that I've made in the past, but I like that too. I like a more structured Edie as well to be able to wear it out and about and not just at home and to sleep in. But the color just doesn't work for me. I think I was sort of convincing myself that it was a nice, light, cool beige tone, but actually I think there's a little bit of yellow and green in it too. And it just makes me look kind of sick. It sort of drains all the color out of my face and makes me look really dull, which is a shame because I really like the waffle knit texture of the fabric, and working with the fabric was really nice, and the shape that it makes is really lovely. It's just the color. So I think that this one I will probably either sell or donate if nobody wants it. So I do have a D-Stash Instagram account where I think about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and a year and a half ago, I posted a few garments that I was selling. It really depends on if we're the same size and stature, but if you're interested, I will link that below as well because I am going through my wardrobe and will probably be adding more pieces like this one to it very soon. Next, I made 3 stretchy tops, starting with another Edie top, a sew over Edie top, because I had this length of 2 meters, I think, of this cotton rib knit in an off-white color from Sew Tissu, which is one of my favorite fabric shops in Paris. And I was able to cut out not only 2 tops, but 3 out of this fabric and use up every last scrap of it. And the first one is, yeah, so the Edie top. This fabric was really hard to work with because it is mostly cotton, but I think it has about 5% elastane in it. Because it's a rib knit, it is extra stretchy under the machine, as in the presser feet would sort of squish it, and so it was difficult to keep my lines straight while zigzag stitching, even with a walking foot and even with reinforcing it with bias tape where the pattern specifies to. And so I think that unfortunately the neckline is a bit stretched out, and in general this version of the Edie top on me just looks a little bit oversized, a little bit awkwardly too big on me, and I think it's because even though it's the same exact size as all the other Edies that I've made, it is just a little bit stretched out and not bouncing back into shape. And it's a little bit of a shame, but that's okay. I think it works. It's just that the neckline is a little bit stretched out, but that's all right. I still love this top. I think that the color is really nice. It's a soft off-white, so not too dark of an off-white, but not also optically white. So it looks soft and nice, and it's a really nice fabric to wear. It's not clammy, even with the elastane, and yeah, kind of squishy and a thicker cotton knit. With the rest of the fabric that I had, I made 2 Coralie Bijasson Ehola tees. So Coralie Bijasson is a French pattern maker, but her patterns are available in English too. And I wanted to let you know, I just saw on Instagram that she is closing her business, and her website will be going down on the 23rd of March. So this video is going to come out on the 21st, if all goes well. I think so. And so I wanted to let you know, because if you want to purchase any of her patterns, I think that the paper patterns that have already been printed and sent out to distributors, such as in pattern shop or fabric shops and the like, will still be out there, and you might be able to find them secondhand in the future. But for PDF patterns and buying them on her website, that's no longer going to be possible after the 23rd of March. So I will link her website below and the ALOT as well. Don't hesitate to go and get that now, because I love her creations and I'm so sad that she's stopping. I think she's moving on to other pursuits, and I'm not sure why she's made the decision. She didn't share that on Instagram, but I'm so sad. Especially her blazers. She has really beautiful fitted blazers that she designs, and I think that right now we see a lot of oversized blazers or relaxed fit blazers, and so if you're looking for something that's a little bit more fitted with beautiful princess seams or collar details, I highly recommend checking out her blazers. But she also has really beautiful dresses and blouses, and it's just a different style than what you see typically. I think she has a very distinct and refined style that she proposes in her patterns, so I'm really sad to see her go. But don't hesitate to check her out before the 23rd, and hopefully if you see this video after or get the message after, you'll be able to find her printed patterns still out there somewhere. But I made the ALOT twice, so because I had enough fabric, I made both sleeve lengths that I usually make. So I made the cap sleeve length and then also a 3/4 sleeve length. Her pattern doesn't propose a 3/4 sleeve length. It's either full sleeve or cap sleeve. But in my first version, I shortened the sleeve length to a 3/4 length sleeve using the length of the Sew Over Edie top to guide me. And it turned out as complicated as my Edie top. So despite reinforcing the seams, the hemline still came out kind of wavy, and as you can see, the neckline is a bit munchy, or wavy as well. I call it munchy because I don't know, it looks like something's munched it a little bit. I can sew that by re-sewing the neckline seam and very carefully sewing a straight edge, but the wavy hems I can't do anything about except sort of give it a good steam and press after making it, but the amount of waviness that remains is not something I can fix, which is a shame, but I don't think it's that noticeable. So on the second Ehola top that I made with the cap sleeves, I decided to stop being lazy and pull out my double-sided knit interfacing. It's a stretch interfacing called Vliazine Stretch Fix that I got from the French haberdashery Rascal online. Sorry, I was about to say en ligne, like in French, which I will link below if you'd like to check that out. I think it's either a French or a German brand, but I think it's available pretty much worldwide, but it's great. So I have a large roll of this, and so I cut strips of it and applied it to the hems so that it would just fold up. I'd press it in place and it would stick because it's double stick, sort of like tape, and then sewed it. And I couldn't understand how it worked. I thought, it's just sticking it together. How is it stabilizing it? But it does, it's magic. And I also cut out strips of 1 centimeter wide pieces so that I could apply it to the neckline of the to the neckline before attaching the neckband, and that seam is so much better as well, so much more stable. So I highly recommend that Bijasson double stick knit interfacing. It is really, really helpful and really great at stabilizing knit fabrics. So I will remember that in the future. Next time I have a tricky fabric to work on. I could have done tests with this fabric. I could have figured out what I needed to do with it before making garments, but I could not be bothered. This season I was very much about uncomplicated makes and just finding the flow and not spending a whole lot of time decision making, which is a shame, but I think it turned out just fine anyway. And I'm very happy with all 3 of these makes in this gorgeous fabric. The last project that I made this season was another pair of the Seamwork Joss pants, which I'm a little obsessed with, and I made it in a dark blue herringbone textured wool blend that I found at a local farmer's market. I was going for flowers and I saw there was a fabric stand and I thought, oh. And you haven't seen this fabric before because I purchased this fabric after my winter plans video, and I really shouldn't have, because I also said at the very beginning of the year that I was going to stop buying fabric, but I can't resist wool. I don't have wools. And Seamwork Joss pants in a drapey wool are just divine. I have been living in them, and so I thought it would be great to have a 3rd pair. And the vendor had a bunch of wool blend or wool drapey wools that he was selling, and I found this one and I got 1.5 meters for 10 euros, which was a great price. He did tell me that it was 100% wool, and that I don't think was true. I don't think he lied to me on purpose, but I was pressing it and noticed that it was going shiny very easily, and wool does not do that. It does not melt under an iron. Wool loves heat and steam. And so I think there's a polyester in it as well. I think it's a polyester wool blend, which is a shame, but it's okay. I think that's what makes it so soft and fuzzy. And so I wanted to make this one because I already have 2 other wool Seamwork Joss pants. The first is a brown check wool that is lighter weight and very drapey. It's great for transitional seasonal days in the fall and the spring, like we're having, like very cold in the morning and warmer in the afternoon. I'm not too cold or hot in it. And then I also have a pair of dark gray wool Seamwork Joss pants that are in a stiffer and thicker wool fabric that are for days where it's snowing out or raining and it's windy and I need to go out to a doctor's appointment, and it's great. So I wanted something in between, and this one is a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier than my brown wool pants, but not as thick and stiff as the dark gray ones, and I thought that I am a sucker for herringbone. I love that texture in fabrics, and so I had to have it. It was also not very expensive, and I think that this dark blue fabric looks really, really nice. It's not a harsh dark blue, it's not a bright or aggressive navy blue. I think it'll go with a lot in my wardrobe, especially, for example, this Seamwork Callen top in this light gray, because it's more of a blue gray. And yeah, I love the color blue, so I'm sure it'll go with a lot in my wardrobe. And I'm very happy with how it turned out. The Seamwork Joss pants are now more of a comfort make for me because I'm so familiar with the instructions. Inserting the waistband elastic is still a pain, but it's an easier project to work on, and so yeah, it was very therapeutic to work on it this season. I am still working on my wool jersey sew over Edie top, which you can see here. This is the inside, it's inside out, and that's the bias binding or bias tape along the neckline that I've applied. This one was really, really hard to cut out because I didn't realize that I asked for a yard in length, but I didn't realize that it was very narrow fabric, and so I did not have enough fabric to cut out the Edie top, and I was sad. But in the end, I decided to modify the Edie top to make it fit in the amount of fabric that I had. So I shortened the length by a good amount, I'd say about 10 centimeters, because the Edie top is a very long top. It goes past the hips. It goes, yeah, down to, I'd say, the hips, like around the widest part of your leg. So I shortened it to a high hip length, and then I shaved off of all of the seam allowances that were at 5/8 of an inch. I shaved off about 2/8 of an inch. Or if you're working in centimeters, the seam allowance is 1.5 centimeters, and I shaved off 0.5 centimeters so that it would be 1 centimeter seam allowances. Because I only need a centimeter with knits, for example, and most knit patterns only have a centimeter seam allowance. And I end up cutting it off anyway once I sew it. So once I did that, I was just able to fit it on the fabric that I had available to me, and it is all cut out and just needs to be made. And I almost cheated and made it this morning and put off filming this video because I wanted to finish it for this video, but honestly, it's only going to take me an hour or two to finish. I'll probably finish it today, but I wanted to be honest with you. Sometimes I don't get to all the projects that I plan to, and it's okay. It's okay to go slowly. It's okay to take my time. I have also made some progress on my Berglieber sweater. This is a pattern by Isabelle Kraemer, and I'm making it in the Durham Natura Ulysse yarn in the Poivre et Sel colorway, which is salt and pepper in English, and I think it's coming out really well. So I've finished knitting the body and one of the sleeves. It's nice and long, and it's got this really interesting cuff detail at the end of the sleeve with a little bit of texture, just like at the yoke, and then a little bit at the hem of the body, although it's rolling up towards the right side. So all I have to do is finish the second sleeve, and then I'll be done. But if you remember, I started this project because I accidentally ordered this colorway of the Ulysse yarn when I was making my kip sweater by Kraemer. I wanted to order the Poivre Blanc colorway rather than the Poivre et Sel colorway, and I accidentally ordered 5 cakes of the wrong color. And so I thought, I can't send it back, rather than trying to sell it or something. It's not a bad color. I like this light taupe color. Why not make something out of it? But I was finishing up this sleeve and I realized that I didn't have enough yarn left to finish the second sleeve, so I ended up having to buy 2 more balls of this yarn, which defeats the purpose of making something to use up the yarn that I had. But it's fine. I am set on finishing this sweater, having it be the lengths that I want and not cropping it or something, or making 3/4 length sleeves, so it's fine. It's fine. So I just need to get to that. I haven't really been in the mood to knit recently, but it's a nice project to work on. It's just stockinette stitch all the way down in the magic loop method, which I don't enjoy very much, but it's not dramatic, it's not bad, and it goes pretty quickly. I just need to do it, and I think I'll be finishing that very soon. So for the other creative pursuits that I've been spending my time on this season, I thought I would take you first into my garden and then tell you what I've been reading. So stay tuned if that's of interest to you. If not, I totally understand that you're only here for sewing, and thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. But now, let's get to the garden. So at the end of the winter season, I spent a lot of time trimming my rose bushes, trimming my jasmine plant, and it didn't go very well. A lot of the dead parts were attached to the green parts, and I accidentally hacked off too many of the green parts, but hopefully it'll grow back. I trimmed my raspberry bush and a lot of my lavender, and I'm really happy to see that a lot of the plants that I bought last fall are doing well, such as the hellebore that I bought, or the peony plant that looked like it was dead all winter, but has just suddenly sprouted up, which is exciting. I also planted a bunch of bulbs last fall, and those are popping up now too. So narcissus and grape hyacinths, which are a little bit more nostalgic for me because when I was a very small kid, I couldn't resist squeezing them because they're just so squeezable. So now when I see them, I give them a little squeeze. And it reminds me of when I was about 2 or 3. My camellia bush is also in bloom for the very first time of its life. I got it about 2 years ago, and it just spent those 2 years growing and fluffing out, and now it is blooming, which is so rewarding. It's so nice seeing that I was taking good care of it and that it's happy here. And then for my summer garden, I have started planting seeds. And first in February, I planted some sweet pea seeds, and they're starting to shoot up now. I only have 8 out of the 28 that I planted, but it's the first round, and I think I'm going to try another round and see how they do, even though it's mid-March now. But yeah, I think I'm learning how to grow sweet peas, and this year it's going to go better. And then I've also planted for cool germination in my zippy tent some Ammi seeds, Ammi majus, a few different kinds of Nigella, 2 different kinds of linen flowers, and some paniculum vercatum, or switchgrass, for filling in some of the bouquets that I hope to make with these cut flowers that I'm planting this year. Last year my Ammi did not grow at all, and so hopefully this year they will. I'm trying some again, the second year in a row, but yeah, it's always really interesting to see what survives and what I can do with some dirt or compost and seeds. And then some of the other bulbs that I planted are tulips. I planted all kinds of tulips, and those are starting to show their faces too, and I am so excited. They're growing so slowly but so fully with their big bright green leaves, and yeah, it just makes me happy. And then I thought I would tell you about the books I've been reading this season, because I do really want to create, this is a pipe dream, but I would love to create a second channel and devote it to books and create a booktube channel, but I do not have the time. And my priority is the sewing channel because I love sewing too, but I love reading as well, and why can't I do both? Anyway, so I thought I would do this here, and it seems to be something that appeals to you, or some of you, and I read a good amount this season. So I started the season with some fantasy because the second book in, I think what's going to be a trilogy, came out by KX's song The Dragon Wakes with Thunder. So it is the second book in a trilogy that started with The Night Ends with Fire, and that I reread in anticipation of the second book. And it is a retelling of the Mulan folktale, the Chinese folktale Mulan, and it is really interesting because she adds magic to the story, and it's a very strong female character, which I love. But I didn't really love the second book. The first book's great, but I did think that sometimes the character wasn't fleshed out as much as I would have liked. So for example, sometimes her motivations weren't exactly understandable, or things would pop up and it'd be like, oh yeah, I knew how to do that because my sister-in-law taught me this once when I was a kid. And it's like, oh, okay, that's easy. You know, it was sometimes easy solutions or easy plot twists that I thought was kind of lazy. But the second one really disappointed me. I thought that the love triangle proposed was something that you see cliched in other books as well, and kind of just, and the plot was just all over the place and not very believable and a little bit too dramatic. It's kind of like the proportions of the war that was created in the first story, or the conflict, was a little bit too big for the author, or too big for the second book, and therefore the solution seemed too easy or just not credible. So yeah, I don't know if I'll read the third book. The second book was kind of difficult to get through just because I was kind of not happy with the way things were going. But if you are interested in a Mulan retelling, I think the first book is really great, and I recommend that one. And if you're interested in the second one as well, I mean, it's interesting to see where it goes. It's just, yeah. For other fantasy books that I read Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. T. Kingfisher is one of my favorite authors when I'm looking for something a little bit more cozy. So she writes fantasy and horror, and I've never read horror before reading her books, and a lot of the fantasy and horror kind of combine in her books. And sometimes the stakes are really high and it's very stressful, but I find that she manages to integrate really interesting characters. Even the side characters are full characters and not cliches or not one-dimensional. And she features all ages and kinds of people. It's not always just a young 18-year-old girl who's beautiful despite herself and all of a sudden is the most powerful mage or whatever. And her characters are flawed, or, you know, one is very shy and socially awkward, but still courageous and trying to save her sister, or that's the case of this book, for example. But I love that her characters are real, sometimes much older, so they're the main female character, but 35 years old. You know, it's not as cliche as other young adult fantasy that I've read, and I really enjoyed this one. It's also kind of cozy. I think the interactions between the characters creates safety, because she also writes about friendship and good, healthy relationships, and I find that it creates sort of a cozy ambiance within a horrific fantasy world, which is great. I highly recommend T. Kingfisher if you're looking for good fantasy with inclusive characters. I also read this season Catherine of Aragon by Alison Weir, who is a Tudor historian who sometimes writes historical fiction. And I find the cover really, really cringy, and I would never have picked this book up on my own. But I follow the booktuber Claire Fenby, who I'll link below if you'd like to check out her channel. She reads a lot of classics, and she is obsessed with Tudor history. And she talked about Alison Weir as one of the best Tudor historians, or the most researched and well-read Tudor historians that she's ever read. And so I thought that the historical fiction that she wrote would be historically accurate and interesting for more than just the main plot points of Henry VIII's wives, which we all pretty much know if you know of Henry VIII. I wanted to know a little bit more about the political and economic context of what was going on between France and England and Rome, for example, at the time, and I got it with this book. It was so interesting to see what was going on in terms of influence and political intrigue, and not just the relationship between Catherine Aragon and Henry Tudor. And it was very interesting. It was long and difficult to get through. It wasn't the most exciting book, and Catherine Aragon's story is not joyful. It's pretty hard to read because her life was so tough. And she went through a lot of really difficult times. For example, being estranged from her daughter. I didn't get through it very quickly because even though I was interested in the topic, it was sad. But it was very interesting, and if you're interested in Tudor history and historical fiction that is historically accurate, I highly recommend Alison Weir. I know she has a bunch of different series, including this one on Henry VIII's wives, so a book on each of his wives, which is, I think I'll read the next ones, but just slowly and not right away. And then the last book I wanted to mention to you today is my absolute favorite of the season. It is The Once and Future Queen by Paula Lafferty, and I read this on a whim. I think I saw the description of it. It is a Guinevere retelling from the King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table stories. And it starts in contemporary England in Glastonbury, where Gwen lives with her two parents who are innkeepers, and she's helping them manage the inn. And one day this older man shows up at the inn and tells her that he's Merlin and that she's actually the Queen Guinevere from the King Arthur tales, and that it's time for her to go back to her original timeline. That he had to transport her into the future as a baby to grow up in this contemporary setting to keep her safe until it was time for her to go back, because in her previous or original timeline she was on the brink of death and that was the only way he could save her. And at first she rejects it completely, saying like, what is this guy telling me? No way. But then her parents confirm that she is in fact adopted and that they knew of this all along, and they're ready to let go, and they knew that she would have to leave them one day. And then she also doesn't have a whole lot of attachments to her current life. For some reason she's not able to form attachments with friends or people around. People tend to forget her easily, and she realizes that's part of the enchantment, that to keep her from really forming attachments. And she's mourning the loss of a person close to her. So she decides, you know what, okay, let's do this. And she goes off. And what I really loved about this main character is that she makes mistakes. She's not perfect, but she is courageous and very strong. Like, there are many situations where I would have just folded. I would have just curled up in a ball, rocking back and forth, just crying because I missed my family, or I missed what I was familiar with. She is a really strong character. She just gets on with it, but it's not that she doesn't feel this sadness. She does, it's just she deals with it, and it's really inspiring to see. And then she goes back to her original timeline. She meets her husband, King Arthur, and she can't remember anything from her previous life. And the plot is basically that the kingdom is under threat. There is some kind of magical threat around them, and they need access to her memories to figure out the solution to this threat. And so she's trying to remember, and she does feel sort of emotionally complicated things about him, and she doesn't understand why because she doesn't remember why. And then also she's accompanied by Lancelot, who is charged with protecting her and their relationship is interesting as well. And what I loved about this story, because this could be categorized as romantic fantasy, what I loved about it is it's not about the romance. The romance is a subplot, and more importantly, it's about relationships in general, and it features such a beautiful friendship. I find that friendship is not talked about enough in daily life, in media, books, movies. I think that good friendship can be just as strong and important in your life than a romantic relationship. And losing a friend, or not having friends, or being distanced from a friend, or losing touch with a friend for different reasons like life events or distance, can be really tough to deal with. And I have been looking for books that talk about friendship a little bit more, and there's such a beautiful friendship in this book of mutual support and respect and communication, and it's just so heartwarming. And it was a very good book. The plot is really interesting. I couldn't put it down. It goes in a direction that I did not anticipate at all, and I highly recommend it. I cannot wait for the second book. This also inspired me to create a third Instagram account where I posted about this book because I wanted to share it. So if you would like to follow that Instagram account, because I do not have the time or mental capacity to create a second channel at this moment, then I invite you to follow me there, where I will include more about what I'm reading, if I can, if I have the time to. Yeah, it would be there. I hope that wasn't too long of a tangent. I hope that was interesting to you. Thank you for watching, and I have linked below all of the patterns and books that I've talked about as well in this episode. Don't hesitate to check those out, as well as a few fabric shops as well, the ones that I've mentioned here in this video. Don't hesitate to like and subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to leave a contribution in the form of a tip, you have the YouTube Super Thanks option, or you can send me a coffee tip with the coffee account that I've linked in the description below. Any contributions are a great help to this channel to sustain it and keep it going. Let me know what you've been up to this winter season. Have you been sewing, baking, gardening, reading? What kept you going through the dark or the heat of the summer season if you're in the southern hemisphere? Let me know in the comments below. I love hearing from you. Don't hesitate. I hope you are all doing well, and take care. Bye-bye.